Hi everybody, this is Karak with ACG and welcome to another review. Today it's going to be an early access title. We're going to take a look at it. It's Hero Defense Haunted Island, a game about heroes defending shit on a haunted island. In fact, it could have pretty much been called Video Game the Gaming and it wouldn't have been any closer of a title reflecting the offering than it is already. But here, like offensive linemen, the heroes are the tower, moving one-liner cracking towers with upgradable skills and an interaction with the environment. Let's see if Hero Defense Haunted Island is another quick cash-in on the mobile to PC craze of randomly created tower defense games, somewhat guilty of releases like their gameplay, just one jackaninny after another. Or if Hero Defense Haunted Island offers something new in a sea of, oh look at me, I'm the same thing as everything else kind of titles. As this is an early access title, I'm going to say buy or don't buy, neither is it meaning that it's ultimately awesome or terrible unless I state in the review. If you like the video, maybe subscribe. So here's the review for Hero Defense Haunted Island. Heroes on a haunted island defending things, battle wizards that look and act their age, and psychotic fire-wreathed children throwing pumpkins. And they happen to be the good guys. Graphics are up first. Okay, so there's a lot of hit and miss here. Graphically, the design is very well done, matching the tone that they are aiming for, which is sort of Transylvania meets the world's largest human traffic jam. The character designs are excellent and to the point and reflect upgrades as well, of which there are a good deal. Spell effects shower sparkling particles pretty much everywhere, and regardless of how busy the screen is, you can usually tell what's going on and who isn't pulling their weight. Now, some locations are noticeably Spartan, however, and that includes your city in which you level up. As this is an early access title, however, there are a couple issues, meaning bugs that need to be pointed out. One is that technically it isn't running the best and was getting anywhere from 30 frames to 60 frames per second on a GTX 980 at 1440p, many times when not much was actually going on. Additionally, the levels are set up well, but the lack of transparency means for a good deal of the time you're fighting the camera to try to look around a tree or try to see around a mountain. Even if you're using the button to zoom in on the hero, you are controlling. Best to use your mouse and flick around and use that to control the actual level itself. It's not horrible, but it's oddly missing the ability to use keyboard shortcuts for location pins or anything like that, especially because some of these maps are a little bit large. Though there's not a lot of options, what is in there appears to show that you can have camera following toggled on, but it never worked in the game, and despite about 50 minutes in the option screen toggling every option on and off, which leaves you with two ways to control. Basically, you can drag it around with the mouse, which works fairly well, but not perfectly, or you can use the C button to elicit molasses cam. Now that could be a bug, but it moved incredibly slowly. It actually just didn't even work half the time. Also, zooming in and out would have been really nice, but that also doesn't seem to exist in the options, and I wasn't able to get any kind of mouse zoom to work. All that being said, I actually really liked the look of the title, and it performed okay, probably in line with an early access game like you would expect. Sound, music, and voice.
Watch me!
Fun Isle. So of course sound is up first, but man, it's plagued with bugs. Both left and right fields can cut in and out, especially if you're in victory banners or anything like that where the sound will just come up on the left channel or just on the right channel. Testing on two different machines, these cropped up. Additionally, it's got a very short audio throw, resulting in anyone at the corners of the screen sort of fading out audibly. If you want to move the camera, you could, but if you barely move the camera away from those characters, the sound completely dies off. Now, when two lines are rushing you, that's pretty vital to be able to hear it, and if it had a longer throw, I think it would inform the gamer of the locations and even the specific actions occurring in two different battle locations, especially in some of the later levels that are quite large. But that being said, what does play is done well, and each spell, attacks, enemy, and location has their own specifics, though I'm going to be honest, a couple would really do with some remastering, like one character's bat that sounds like you're throwing toothpicks into a damn beer mug. It has almost no low end and results in sounding incredibly weak as a weapon. In fact, I actually thought it was the damn mouse click for the first 3 or 4 minutes of the game, and that somehow it was becoming audible within the title. I would say okay, but it has some bugs and needs a little bit of work. Music. You know, so far I like it, though there are large absences of music during the gameplay. It's good and it fits the moody locations and the atmosphere well, with a mix of traditional instruments like violins fading into total silence for long periods of times and then coming back and returning, as well as a good deal of more quirky off-the-wall tracks with assorted instruments and twirling whistles that you would expect in a game trying its best to channel Dracula's overall gothic theme. I would say good music. Voice. You know, it's pretty good. Characters are all well-defined and never end up sounding like one another, and during the campaign there are little bits of story given with voiceovers that do well to convey the story, despite lacking almost any emotion. Now, one issue though is the absolute mind-numbing repetitiveness of the one-liners. With a game like this where you're already grinding content and locations and all visuals, you probably shouldn't want to punch someone in the face when the main character says his one-liner for the 3,000th time. My hope is there's a dramatic increase in voiceovers once completed. Otherwise, man, that is the first thing getting toggled off if possible. It's not that they're bad, far from it. It's just that during the gameplay itself, there are barely any variations so far. Now, gameplay. So, yeah, you're a hero on a haunted island defending it. In most tower defense games, you play a tower and bad guys come at you in various ways. Here, the heroes replace the towers, and of course they can now move. Now, that additional flexibility can make the game feel a bit like Torchlight style of a title, let's say, but with the enemies coming at you instead of you going to them. This is reflected by your ability to center attacks on groups or any one foe, and of course, take over the heroes pretty much individually. The change-up is really welcome. Sadly, due to how this is done, that means that many times you're going to see an area, click on it, and your character flatly won't go there, because the game has these safe zones where characters can or cannot walk, and they're sadly drawn in a way that can result in odd, convoluted locations where you can't figure out why you can't just walk to the end of a plateau, but you can technically hover on a bridge somewhere. It's just one of the hazards you rub up to in a game with this much flexibility, and I think it's fine for what it does. You just have to be aware of some of those limitations. Additionally, in levels, you can put up these things called shrines, which are, well, basically sort of towers from a tower defense game, and each one can be tasked to do different things when you build them, like increase a stat or help a particular character or a couple other things. Let me tell you, absolutely vital to success. The amount of power these add is incredible. Additionally, there are locations in the game that are already built that do the same thing. Now, when not fighting, you're rebuilding a town, and as you do, you're upgrading weapons, reforging them, buying skills, and basically doing the bog standard town stuff. It's handled really well, though I would like to see them clean up the interface of the entire game with buttons for closing windows and so forth versus just on the screen. And sometimes nothing happened when you clicked on or around the area they wanted to, so you had to move out of a box to click a box to reopen another box by clicking out of another box. It's a bit convoluted and can do with some shoring up to make that movement from menu to menu much easier. Now, skills, though important, are sort of bog standard stuff of the plus 10 to damage variety. A little bit more worrisome is due to the way in which you have to upgrade your academy to learn those skills and how few there are. It feels like there won't be a huge amount of variation from player to player depending on whatever level they are. Not unexpected, but just a bit of a warning that though it may appear to be an RPG light or a MOBA, it is very much a tower defense heavy. Now, quickly, you're going to defeat all the levels, and then the rest of the game is going to go back and redoing levels and picking hazards that adjust the difficulty of the level by making you win them in unique circumstances like only having one hero or only having one life. Using the various characters together really delivers this tacit feeling of synergy, though, and that's where this game is absolutely at its finest. In some small ways, it plays a bit like a MOBA, but not enough to really say it changes anything. But what it does play is like a tower defense game where you can finally move the damn towers, and it works really well when it is working. Since each hero can be different in their gameplay style, it does require strategy, not only how you start the level, but who you choose next to bring in, or do you just power up your current level? Some characters are slow to move, but reflect that by also slowing down bad guys, while other characters are splash damage and others are up close and personal. Sadly, as of yet, the only real one where I felt a true personality was the old priest, where it felt like he required real strategy to play because he was so slow, but he did some really cool monster effects, while the others were fast enough and nimble enough that they really began to run together at some point. Lastly, currently, multiplayer is nowhere to be found and will only be added once the game is out of early access, so that's something to be aware of. On the other hand, there's 8+ hours of single-player content, so it's not like you're gonna buy a game and have nothing to do quite quickly. Fun factor. Ignoring for a second that this is early access and has some bugs, I had a blast. Now, I did fight the camera a great deal of the time, even with the mouse switching around, and the lack of zoom really bothered me. Transparency in many locations I feel needs to be added, and overall true camera control really does need to be shored up, especially when you end up feeling like you're playing an action game without the ability to see all the action. Nevertheless, I enjoyed the hell out of this game, and the combined might of the characters and unique combinations and the required mastery of shrines, special attacks, and placement were a welcome feature, even if, as I said, a couple of the characters sort of felt like they ran together. Now, I'm rating this title on a buy, don't buy scale. For fans of the genre, this is most definitely a buy, and if you're not a fan, there's nothing here that's going to make you a sudden believer. It's too early, and there's some weirdness going on there. But most importantly, if you're a MOBA fan, be very, very careful, as currently this game needs a gigantic number of additions to really please most MOBA fans, including far larger skill trees, and honestly, a much more varied and subtle roster, unless you go into it and know you're not going to get those things. Listen, tower defense games are inherently grindy and offer a specific type of enjoyment, and though Haunted adds a bit more to the mix, it's not changing the paradigm or revolutionizing anything. What it is, though, is a fun title in the tower defense games library, and it does what many games do in any genre. It adds a couple different unique switches. And that's it for me. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up, maybe talk about us on Twitter, Reddit, whatever. If you dislike the video, thumbs down, and as always, peace out.